If I pay off a mortgage on a house in probate, do I own the house? You know what? I get this question quite a bit. We're going to get into that next. Welcome back to the channel featuring the leading probate real estate team in Northern California. I'm Brendan Moore, Realtor and Certified Probate and Trust Specialist by the California Association of Realtors.
And I'm Bill Heyman. I'm a licensed California professional fiduciary, as well as I'm a licensed California real estate broker, and I'm a registered and bonded California legal document assistant specializing in probate.
Now, please like this video, subscribe right now. What a no-cost probate service. We have a team in every county in California where we help people save thousands of dollars and eliminate headaches with our one-of-a-kind probate administration service and real estate listing combo. If it's in California and real estate needs to be sold, you may qualify. So reach out, even if you've started probate with someone else or on your own. Our info is in the About section on this channel. We love your calls, texts, emails, and comments. Now let's get into it. Now, if I pay off a mortgage on a house in probate, do I own the house? And I get this call a lot. People will call me on our channel or leave me comments asking me, they're an heir and they want to keep the house. And if they are the ones who pay off the mortgage, does it just automatically transfer their ownership to them? And essentially, well, let's get into that. So the impact of paying off the mortgage, Bill, and we have some notes. We're going to be looking down at some of our notes on this because there's kind of a lot to talk about here. But paying off the mortgage, what does that really mean in a probate situation here?
Well, usually when there's a probate going on and there's a home involved, quite often there's an existing mortgage that the deceased property owner had, and then it needs to be dealt with one way or another. Sometimes one of the heirs or another family member will volunteer to come forward and just pay it off. And as you said, some of them think that if they pay it off, they own the home, and that's just not true. Even though they pay off the mortgage, the home is still owned technically by the estate until you finish going through probate and either sell the home or transfer the home to the heirs. It remains titled in the name of the estate. So you do have to be a little careful and understand that when you decide to pay off the mortgage on a probate home. You just need to know that when you pay off the mortgage, no, you don't own the house.
Right. Yeah. So from there, now legal considerations perhaps. You have to have probate court approval sometimes just to make a payment, perhaps, in some cases.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of times, well, most of the time, unless you've got an appointment from the court as the personal representative or administrator executor, mortgage companies won't even talk to you. They'll just say, sorry, we can't communicate with you. So you need to get an appointment in order to have the authority to communicate with the lender. And oftentimes, if you're going to pay off the mortgage, that's fine. But a lot of times the person who pays the mortgage off, they want to be reimbursed. And you will need court approval to get reimbursed on that, as well as you better have documentation to back up the payment that you made, definitely. The other thing too is that you need to consider is how ownership of the house is going to be based, whether it's on a will, if there was one, or whether if there was no will. You want to take that into consideration before you pay off the mortgage, because you may be paying off the mortgage and you may not even be an heir, or you may be one of 4 heirs and you only really have a 25% interest in that home, even though you paid off 100% of the mortgage. So, you got to be careful there. It's just, you really want to think about it long and hard before you make that decision to pay off the mortgage. A lot of things to take into consideration. And there's a number of different scenarios in situations like this. And why don't you talk about some of those scenarios, Brendan?
Yeah, and thanks, Bill. And I made some notes about this, so I'm just going to be, looking down a little bit here. But yeah, scenario number 1, you are the sole beneficiary, meaning it's just you're the one inheriting everything. There are no other heirs. You have to be sure of that first. Sometimes people think they are, and maybe they aren't. And if there's a will, it's going to be pretty clear. There's the laws of intestate succession that you may want to look into. But essentially that means paying off the mortgage, well, it may help you, but you still need legal ownership through probate. So it doesn't, even if you paid off the mortgage in that situation, it doesn't just transfer to you. It's essentially in the name of the estate or the decedent still. You haven't really
Completed
completed probate.
the probate.
Now, Sierra, scenario number 2, multiple heirs, which is going to be probably the most common. Multiple heirs are beneficiaries. Even if you pay off the mortgage, the house may need to be sold to distribute the assets fairly among all heirs. So say there's 4 heirs and everybody wants their piece, that home may need to be sold. So before you do that, you definitely want to communicate with the rest of the heirs on the plan there. And then there'd be scenario number 3 in testate situations. If there is no will, state laws determine who inherits the property, regardless of who paid off the mortgage. So really, you need some good advice on this before you even make that decision. Now, there could be risks and potential issues as well. So no guarantee of ownership is one of them. Paying off the mortgage does not ensure that you will inherit the house. There could be financial risks. The possibility of losing the money paid if the property is sold or awarded to another heir. Definitely possible. Legal disputes, potential for disputes among heirs, especially if a will is contested. So much of this depends on proper communication with the rest of the heirs and just understanding the situation you're in. Now, Bill, what are some steps to take before they pay off a mortgage? Because there's a lot of situations where I've seen where heirs have paid off a mortgage or they are making payments. They don't want the house to go into foreclosure. They want to sell the house. They don't want to notice a default, all of that. And there's a lot of great ways to do that. So what are some steps they can take?
Well, I think probably one of the most important steps is before you pay off a mortgage on a probate home, whether you're an heir or not who's doing it, please consult with an attorney. You definitely need some legal advice here. And as I think most of our audience knows, we're not attorneys and we can't give legal advice. And you definitely need legal advice in a situation like that. So consult with an attorney before you make a decision to pay off a mortgage. Also, take a look at the will or the estate plan. Make sure you know who is going to inherit before you pay off that mortgage. Make sure you fully understand that. And if there's no will, as Brendan said earlier, then what's called the intestate succession laws kick in and they determine who inherits. So if there's no will, make sure you understand that. You really need to talk to the personal representatives, if that's not you, and the heirs before you pay off the mortgage, because you want them to understand that most likely you are going to want to be reimbursed when funds become available after the sale before everything's distributed. Or maybe you're making arrangements to buy out a certain percentage of the other heirs with your payoff on the mortgage. All that needs to be communicated and worked out before you go forward and pay off the mortgage. So those are just some things that you really want to consider before you do that.
And that last point, like I've said, we've seen it many times where people are keeping the mortgage current or they're paying off the mortgage. And that may be just one heir or the actual personal representative, the executor or the administrator, making those payments, and they get reimbursed back at the end of probate.
Right.
And we've seen that quite a bit, fairly simple to do, would you say? I mean,
it's not hard to do. It's just that occasionally the other heirs don't quite understand, or they don't like the fact that one particular family member who made those payments is going to get a chunk of money before the estate's distributed, even though they deserve it because they made those payments. So again, communication, that's important in probate.
Big time, in all aspects, not just about the mortgage. But so I guess to conclude, recap on the points, paying off a mortgage doesn't guarantee ownership, and there's legal steps that must be followed. The importance of seeking legal guidance before making any financial decisions regarding a probate property, it's important. You need to know what you're doing along the legal guidelines of California, and always consult with an attorney whenever you need advice before you go down that road of paying off a mortgage. That's about everything that we have for this one. Anything you wanted to add?
I think we've covered it.
Now, I think that you may want to know a little bit more on how much does probate cost in the whole state of California. We actually have a video that's more Sacramento focused, but it really discusses all of California. We have that coming up next. It's called How Much Does Probate Cost in Sacramento? It's going to appear right over my head. Go ahead and click on that about right now.